Hello and welcome to part 2 of my Monogreen deep dive with Rint, Maxim, Salmin. Enjoy the continuation of this show. Okay, we're going to talk quickly about the 5-drops. No one is really main decking 5-drops. I don't even know that we need to get into them, but let me ask you, why is no one playing 5 and higher creatures in this deck? Is it just because our 1 through 4 drops are just good enough? Is it because we want our top end to just be Nissa? Why isn't anyone playing these 5 drops? Elder Gargaroth, right? Wouldn't Elder Gargaroth be a perfect top end for this deck? Why aren't people playing that in mono green?
Yeah, I think ironically, Elder Gargaroth is more of an anti-green card
yes.
than green card itself. And that's a very good application, I have to say, very scary. Usually there are not too many copies though, maybe one. No, honestly, it just comes down from the mana base. I like to run 24 lands. I'm still fine with that. If you were to run any 5-drops, I think it's safe to say you should play 25 lands or some kind of mana ramp like Paradise Druid. Actually, there was a deck with Llanowar Visionary that did really well in the Red Bull. I think it was top 32 or even 16 in this past Red Bull. It requires just an according mana base, 25 lands or some kind of mana dorks, and that's pretty much it. That's the story of it. I wouldn't run it otherwise. I'm running 24 lands. I don't have any Paradise Druid, anything like that, and that works for me. That's what I kind of believe in. And again, if you're building any aggro deck, any sort of creature based aggro, or in general fast and more of a faster aggro, you probably want everything that costs 4 or more to have an immediate effect.
Yeah.
So currently, let's say if I have Garruk, Questing Beast, Vivian, they all do good things for me immediately the turn they come out. The exception is, of course, the Great Henge, but even Henge, honestly, you have a decent number of early game creatures, so you can get a draw immediately off of Henge. That's what I like to do.
Yep,
sometimes, in some of those matchups where I know, let's say in the mirror, my Henge is going to get threatened, if I'm not desperately dying or something, I'm totally fine. I'm going to hold on to my Henge until I can get at least one trigger out of it.
Yeah. Yep.
So sometimes it happens immediately too. You slap a troll immediately. That's perfect. You get a draw. You get a 4/4 whatever. Gain life. Awesome.
Yeah, I think it's the same reason why mono red decks aren't running Terror of the Peaks as a top end. It's just that's not their actual top end. They want their top end to be Embercleave, right? It's
right. Yeah, absolutely.
We want our top end to be, we've already killed our opponent by the time turn 5 comes around, right? So that's kind of the game plan. It's we're just not, I think one of the reasons you see Elder Gargaroth coming in out of the board in Reclamation or Bant is that, I mean, those, they're playing Growth Spiral, they're playing Oro.
Yeah.
Right? And so for them, it's not trivial to cast a 5-drop, but they're decks that are built to, have 5 mana on turn, for sometimes even turn 3 or whatever. It's they have access to so much mana that the cost on the Gargaroth isn't a huge tax for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you're running a lot of these cards, you probably have to kind of just rebuild your deck a little bit to more of a ramp style. And there was one of the viewers in my chat. He said he ran successfully a ramp, monogreen ramp version where you have Grazer, Great Horn, Paradise Druid. Then it totally makes sense. You can if you can get it out on turn 3 and it gets unchecked, that's pretty huge, right?
Yeah,
that's
big pretty good. Yeah. It's definitely a spicy approach to the deck, right?
I mean, it's pretty interesting, right?
Probably
it's
pretty
also
swingy, I imagine. Like some games you just crush it, and some games you're just
Again, with these ramp deck, like that's more of a fair ramp, right?
Yeah.
Because we all know what the problem with the ramp card is. The problem is they draw for themselves. They compensate already immediately. Grow Spiral Uro. It's just. Sure, you're gonna blow up some people with turn 3 Nissa or turn 3 Gargaroth, but still, like from my experience, like what happens if you don't draw your high end, or what happens if you draw all your high end but you don't have enough ramp, right? And
exactly
this kind of game,
exactly, which I think is one of the strengths of the mono green deck. Actually, is just consistency, like. I actually think it's one of the things that recommends it over like say the mono red aggro deck, right? Because that's a deck which can get stuck just drawing a bunch of 1/1s, right?
True. Yeah. Or like let's say you're not able to get your cleave out on time or something like that.
Exactly. Or I mean, we've seen those like double cleave or triple cleave hands, and you just don't have enough threats, right? And so one of the things that I love about the mono green deck is that most of the cards in your deck are just relevant threats on their own. You just you top deck a threat, you slam it down, it's a pretty good card, and it's kind of like deal with this.
It's kind of weird with the whole format, and that's why I mean, this is kind of like very solid and maybe like a classic type of aggro, right? I don't know. Yeah, exactly. The same kind of mentality. You are very stable all the time. The problem is like these other synergies are so powerful. Actually, whether it's Ember Cleave or whether it's like Cat Oven Devil Claim, right? These mini combos, or like even like Reclamation with Explosion, right? And things like that, right? Yeah, sure. If these synergies go off, they're gonna blow you out of the water. Like they're just not gonna be even close. But so many times I see like Reclamation deck is drawing something, scrying something, cycling something, and then it just die.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, interesting. Or like when the sacrifice player draws like 3 ovens and no cats.
It's embarrassing.
And they just die. I'm like, okay, interesting game we're having here. I'm just kind of not doing anything. I'm just playing whatever I'm playing all the time,
Yeah.
And the outcome of the game is just so different, right? Either I just cruise easily, or they just blow me up like in one turn, basically. But it is what it is. That's why I've never been really a fan of either of these decks, and that's that's all good. That's why I really like it. It's kind of like, at least you're playing the game to a certain extent, and you have, honestly, like if you think about it, probably the green cards in this aggro deck are crazy. Something like I've never seen before. When I started playing Arena, it was after a long break off of paper. I'm like, what is this? Like they're actually 3 mana 5/4s with evasion also built in. It's like Steel Leaf. I was like, what is this? Yorvo got printed. Questing Beast. I was like, what is this? I mean, even Yorvo, right? I mean, what the hell? It's like 3 mana 4/4 that grows like indefinitely, infinitely.
Yeah.
I was like, what is this? Right? It's just absurd.
Yeah.
But apparently, like, it's just kind of mediocre, right? You can say, oh, Yorvo, it's like whatever, right? It's just it's pretty funny, right?
Yeah,
the world we live in right now, but it's all good.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to keep us moving along here. Actually, I'm going to skip over. I had some other 5 drops lined up here, but I just don't think they're that relevant. So let's talk about. We touched on Stone Coil Serpent, but as time has gone on, I think that card's only gotten better and better.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
It's never been as good as it is right now, right?
Absolutely, it's pretty crazy, right? If you look at like now, Ujin got reprinted, and again, it doesn't affect the Serpent, and literally, like the stock of this card just rises from set to set, like from Theros to Ikoria to now M21, absolutely.
So here are some reasons. Like if you look at the best cards in the format, they're all cards, or most of them are cards that can't interact with the Serpent, right? So Ugin can't interact with it. Expansion Explosion can't kill it. Oro can't block it. It also blocks Oro if you need it to. The arguably the best cards in the sacrifice decks in the form of
Mayhem Devil.
Corvold and Mayhem Devil. They can't interact with it either, right? You know, it can't get hit by casualties of war. You know, a lot of the cards which the Sultai decks lean on to get the job done can't hit it either. Teferi can't hit it. You know? So it's like when you go down the list, it's like
Yori and Krasis also.
Yeah, Yori and Krasis, exactly. They just
Oath of Kaya.
Yep. Take you up any of the companions, you know? It's like I've had
Lurrus,
so many.
Lurrus was big, not being able to block it, or the mutated Gem Razor.
That's it. I've won, you know, a fair number of games when my opponent plays like the defensive Lurrus and they think that they're going to be able to get a block in, they just can't, right? So Yep. It's also it embarrasses the Dreadhorde Butcher as well.
Yeah, very nice one too. A big one too. Very relevant. Yeah, that's why also like whenever you have that dilemma sometimes versus Rakdos decks, do I play this 1/1 Serpent or not?
Yes.
Play it immediately. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I've had so many games where I play it out and my opponent's like they tank for a moment and then they play that Butcher and say go and you're just like, got him.
Yeah.
So now it is weak to claim the firstborn, so that's always something you need to, you know, watch out for. Another one that it plays around nicely is Elspeth Conquers Death, so that feels really good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, probably Glass Casket is the best answer.
Yes, Glass Casket's excellent.
That's fair enough, right? There has to be something, so it's all good.
Okay, so here's
Here's
a big question. Yeah, Eliminate's good against it too. Here's a big question for me. Do you keep it in the mirror match when your opponent could have the Gem Razor?
Yeah, I don't. Not at all. And not just because of the Gem Razor. It's just because of the average stats, right? It's not good. It's not contributing enough to the board to set you up. It's been it worked perfectly for me as well because not only there's a Gem Razor threat that might create the opportunity of your opponent to actually go on the offense and push through your blockers and whatnot. But it's just average stats, right? That's not something you're looking for. You're not looking at to play early. You're not really looking at to play late either. Like what's it for, right? The bigger it is, the more vulnerable it is to their Gem Razor, and early it just does literally nothing. I think that honestly, some of these like early turns in the mirror match are not even important at all. You can even skip turn 1 and turn 2 altogether sometimes. It's totally fine. Or you can like play Heart's Desire and then just do nothing on turn 2, play Love Struck, and you're good to go. That's totally fine. Again, that's a very different game there. You can like manipulate your life total. You can take the damages too, because again, most likely it's a green deck. It's not going to burn you down except for the ram through maybe.
Yeah.
But other than that, like Stone Coil is just average stats. I would say that maybe it's good if they remove it with Gem Razor and then like there'll be less razors for your henge too. But basically for me, it's more so just average stats.
Yeah. Well, and I'm thinking about it. You don't benefit from the protection and you don't benefit from the reach, right? So it's just,
very true.
It's like also a lot of what's good about the card is not relevant in the matchup. So I mean, trample also before you get to attack sometimes in the mirror effectively, it might take you a while too. Yes. Yep. That's a really good point. I don't know. I've won a fair number of mirror matches on the ladder because my opponent didn't bod out those stone coils, and I just left. Yeah, I find it to be surprising. A lot of people do that. Yeah. And I was like, also, I'm pretty happy because the mirror also becomes about the card. Like if you can get a 2-for-1. That's just what you're looking for. You're looking to create this advantage. So let's say Vivian, Ooze, Henge, obviously, right? All accomplish that. So, well, that's the thing. It's like I leave in Gem Razor to target the Henge, but, if I get to kill that turn 3 or turn 4 or even later Stone Coil Serpent, that's just gravy, right? I mean, that's very true. You're so far ahead in that match. So... just don't, bottom out in the mirror, guys, for sure. All right, and then let's talk about the last creature I want to discuss here, Voracious Hydra. This is a card which is, it's always been quite good. We've seen it in and out of these lists, and at the moment it's not seeing that much play. Is it just because it's kind of like overcosted and the fight isn't super relevant, or what's up with that?
Yeah, personally for me, I've always felt like Hydra is much, much better with Paradise Druid and some kind of ramp creatures.
I see. Yeah.
Again, because you can activate your castle, let's say on turn 4, and then you have a 4/5 fighting, or you can just double the counters or whatever. It's definitely good, but probably again Primal Might takes over from here, and it's not really needed as much because Primal Might is so good and so fitting for the metagame right now as well. Just being able to clear Nissa or just load up for a big swing, and it's pretty important. Hydra is going to be very underwhelming if you don't have at least Paradise Druid there. Yeah, it's more of a Simic ramp type of card.
Right. It's kind of the same problem as Wicked Wolf, huh? It's just kind of
it's kind of like that, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it could be occasionally good for you to remove like weaker targets. Yeah. Again, the problem is it's too slow for Jolril. It's too slow for Priest of Forgotten Gods. The best you can do is probably play turn 3, like 1/2, remove Steamkin, remove whatever, right? Risen Reef,
exactly.
Innkeeper. But these cards also are not like as relevant anymore. Like it's more about Jolril, Priest of Forgotten Gods, and Primal Might is a perfect fit there too.
Yep. Excellent. Okay, well, that rounds out the common creatures that get played in the archetype. All right, so let's talk about the Planeswalker Suite here, because I think this is another thing that people are kind of wondering about when they're building this deck, because there's a number of options and they all look pretty good. So let's dive in here. Now, the first one I wanted to talk about, which we're not really running anymore, is Vivian, Champion of the Wild.
That's right.
I know that you were high on this card for a while, but was it basically just because of the Yori and Luca matchup that you were running it?
To be honest, not exactly, because even before that or after that, I was doing it really successfully versus like Azorius, Yorion, and Bant, and Sultai even as well. But things changed with M21, so sometimes this was one of the ways you could really outgrind in these matchups, outgrind your opponent, even the control matchups. But that's not the case anymore, because first of all, there's a new threat of Ujin, so it's going to put you on it kind of puts you on the clock. It's not really that important. Usually the game ends before that. Sometimes you can also answer Ujin even with a questing beast, or you can have a Serpent in play or whatever. But still, that's one of the bigger factors. And then another one is probably even bigger one, is that these decks have now access to Jolrail, and it's one of those ways they can actually pressure your Planeswalkers back.
Yes.
Especially someone like Vivian here, because she's pretty low on loyalty. The reason we got away with that in the past is because there was no way for them to pressure the Planeswalkers in any way. So it just goes completely unchecked, right? Until probably ECD. And it's also great if they hit it with ECD, because the thing that you probably want to -2 immediately, right?
Yeah.
Next turn you probably +1 and then -2 again, and whatever early board you have, you can keep attacking safely with that, whatever. But it's not the case anymore, mostly because of Jolrail. Again, just the remaining loyalty is way too low. It's enough for just one Panther attack, and then you definitely don't want to sit back and protect your Planeswalker and not attack them. I don't think that's a good strategy either, because eventually there's a Tef that's going to come down and it's going to prevent all the flash from happening. So not my choice lately for sure, and I think for these are pretty clear reasons as well. Yeah,
that sounds good. So let's talk about, I think, one of the biggest kind of controversies in the Planeswalker slot at the moment is whether to run Vivian Arcbow Ranger or the new Garruk Unleashed, right? Because these both occupy the 4-mana slot, and they do somewhat similar things with the +1 ability. So let's talk about... Okay, first of all, have you been at all impressed with Garruk Unleashed?
I can't say it's been like, something out of the ordinary, but it's definitely a solid card. I like it. It indeed works in a similar fashion. So the key difference is, of course, being the difference in the +1, right? Counters instead of flat +3/+3 until end of turn. I think maybe in this sense, like if we're talking about like a control matchup such as Bant or Azorius control or something like that, Esper even maybe. This is where it's probably like about even. Maybe you're fine there because you usually either like close games pretty fast or they just end up stabilizing, right? And it doesn't really matter. It's pretty even in that sense. All in all, I think Vivian is just still superior because of the -5 potential as well. That's absolutely huge.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I think you were also on stream that time where I managed to get the Garruk's ultimate resolved. Right?
Yeah, I think I did see that. Yep.
Yeah, I think you caught that. Yeah. So basically, that was a thing where it's definitely interesting, but it's also a little clunky, right? Because what do? You find your haste creature and put it like at the end of turn on board, and then it just dies, does nothing, right? It's probably not something you want to do. But okay, like that potential is still there. The big difference when it comes to Vivian in these matchups is actually making a body is pretty good. Sometimes they can. Sometimes they can hit you with Shatter, and like before you play your Vivian, they could go first, or they could go Spiral Shatter. Stuff like that. And then Garruk is definitely better. You're already like keeping up on board. And so yeah, basically what I decided to do recently is I felt still the need of a Planeswalker on 4. That's like the best thing you can do probably in these sweeper matchups. And I just split it between 3 Vivians and 1 Garruk. And I have 2 extra Garruks in the sideboard versus Shadow of the Sky, Extinction Event decks. And that worked well for me. Honestly, some upside, some downside compared to Vivian. The downside comes to Reclamation because again, Vivian can protect your creatures versus versus Storm's Wrath.
Yeah.
Vivian can actually get you out of range and get out of range herself. Garruk also survives Storm's Wrath, but still I think like the effects are a little inferior there. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It worked for me. I like the new Garruk, and I would happily play it after Vivian rotates out instead, maybe like 3 copies in the main or whatever the case may be.
Right.
And yeah, I like it. From my experience, again, it's probably one of the best things you can do is play a turn 4 Planeswalker on curve. It feels great.
You raise a really good point there, which is we've been a little bit spoiled with Vivian because she's just so good, and she's so on plan for the deck. And yeah, the question of which one to run is going to be a moot point in a couple of months. So yeah. But I for me, I think I still favor the Vivian in a lot of matchups.
Absolutely.
And I can see from your main deck decision, it looks like you do as well. Just because, the counters sticking around is so relevant, and it's like if you +1 Vivian on any creature, that creature permanently becomes a relevant threat. It's like it's like this happens quite often where you let's say there's a Wrath or something, or just some I don't know, things go down, and you're left with your 1/1 from Heart's Desire. Yeah. And Vivian just turns it into a 3/3, and you just keep smashing face, and it's like...
that's always such a great feeling. I remember like that being so big when I was running like Paradise Druid and Theros even.
Oh, yeah.
If you have a 1-drop and you have played turn 3 Vivian, that's just insane, right?
It's nasty.
Yeah, you turn a 1/1 into a 3/3 immediately, and it's really good.
Yeah, so it's just so that's one of the things that Vivien has going for it. It's also Vivien's. It can actually be really good defensively as well. You know?
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly. That's one of those big struggles with Garruk sometimes is that, you know, maybe you want to plus, right? And then, because like the token doesn't have reach, right? You have no protection sometimes versus a flyer or something like this.
Yeah.
You plus, and then you just can't attack. And it's kind of like you just plussing your Garruk for loyalty, not doing much with that. Vivien does not have that problem. She's gonna be on the money no matter what ability you play, no matter like at what point in the game.
Yeah.
There's a big difference there.
And it's like, you know, Garruk's ability to make a creature is definitely relevant. But, you know, here's the thing. It's like, even in a Bant matchup or in a Reclamation matchup or whatever, like, they cannot afford to let a Vivien sit around, you know? Because it's just like, it's like Questing Beast off the top, that's a 6/6 haste, right? Anything off the top is a problem. So, you know, it's not necessarily where you want to be, but, you know, I've won so many games where my board gets wrathed, but I kept my Vivien, and I just, anything off the top was, again, it was just a relevant threat, you know.
Yeah. So. Again, I've been just relying on that forever, for as long as I can remember. Just a turn 3 Planeswalker, turn 4 Planeswalker is like, it's what's gonna get you through those Shadow the Sky matches. That's pretty much it. Doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah. So just don't look at Vivien and think that she's terrible on an empty board. Like, you know, it's not perfect, right? But if your opponent's not answering it, like, Vivien ticks up quickly and you minus it, and then you get a hasty threat from your sideboard. So, you know, it's still huge. A very relevant card.
Yeah, that's a game changer.
Yeah.
Again, Garruk's ultimate is, again, it just takes so much longer to go, and then to get to, and then to, you know, the way you use it is also like, it could be a little clunky. I mean, the fact that you do it every turn is very powerful.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, you know, it probably, again, Garruk is more fitting, like, for like even heavier mid-rangey decks. It's kind of weird card, right? In a lot of ways. Yeah. Like, you have a super aggressive +1. You have an ultimate that doesn't really benefit that aggressive plan, right? Because you want to be jamming some big threats like Elder Gargaroth of that ultimate, right?
Yeah.
Things like that. I mean, I never really get to the ultimate anyways. But, you know, making bodies is pretty good. Like, making bodies out of thin air, it's pretty good regardless. That's where the potential upside lies, like, just because it's very different. Right? Again, your Planeswalker is kind of protecting yourself in a decent way. It's kind of like, you know, that the Ajani from M20, right? That makes Pridemate tokens.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty big. That's pretty important. Off of Garruk, you can hit a lot of like relevant synergies in your deck. Let's say you can trigger your Preserver, you can pump your Pelt and Yorvo and things like this. You can make a mutate target if you need to. So it's all pretty interesting still. Like, I think that's just, you know, that's a solid point with Garruk. You know,
it's a really good point. Yep, yeah, it's a really good point. These are the subtleties that you don't quite think about when you're just looking at the deck list. Mm-hmm. But yeah, all this stuff comes up, man. It really does.
And also having both of them in the field is insane, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty good. I mean, I would do it again. Like, I like 3 copies of each legendary permanent, right? To kind of not get screwed by the legendary rule, and then that's why it's like 3 in 1.
Yeah. So, okay, so now let's talk about the next Planeswalker distinction here, which is that a number of people recently have actually been adopting Nissa again in these decks.
Yeah. And it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, you weren't seeing it for a while, but okay, so let's tackle 2 questions here. Number 1, why are people playing Nissa again? And number 2, why is it Nissa and not Vivien Monsters Advocate?
Yeah, honestly, I think that kind of like the answer will be for the both questions too, because Primal Might is there now. Primal Might is out, and it's just doubling your mana with Primal Might.
There you go.
Sounds pretty good, right? That's pretty much it. Yeah, I think without Primal Might, you know, I think I would still give the edge to maybe even Monster's Advocate. Again, they were kind of even before, I would say. Like Vivian, like Monster's Advocate and Nissa were kind of like even. But now definitely the edge goes to Nissa. Just because of that Primal Might synergy. And also probably because the Ujin is there now. It's going to be...
Ugin's a big
the
one.
Lands are going to be unaffected. So that's important too.
Yep.
And also, you know, like him minusing for 5 also gonna hurt themselves a lot more. Like you would have to exile your own Nissa if you play it off of Ugin there. So things like that.
So, and then here's another thing that I really like about Nissa is that in that classic like playing a Planeswalker into an empty board thing, you get that haste token. And that can be really tough, you know? It's like, I think...
That's great, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I love about Nissa over the Vivian. And then another thing is, again, like, it's just these broken War of the Spark Planeswalkers that come down with so much loyalty, right?
Right.
Because it's a difference between 3 on the Vivian versus 5 on the Nissa. You know, it's like you pass...
It's huge.
You pass the turn with Nissa at 6 loyalty... And that's like, you know, in the mirror match, you're looking at a board stall and you're looking at your opponent tick that Nissa up to 6 and you're like, what am I going to do about that? Like, it's such a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like still bizarre to me, like that, you know, I would probably, you know, I don't know, I would make Nissa in a way that you plus and you double the mana.
Yes.
Like I would not make it a passive ability and maybe like -2 create the land.
Make the 3/3, yeah, exactly.
Right? Or something like that, because it's like one of those games I played, one of my losing matches versus Nissa Reclamation. I play my Garruk, right? I -2 for the token. and my Planeswalker goes down to 2 loyalty. They play Nissa. They play Haste Vigilance. And they go up to 6 loyalty. I mean, I just felt like, I mean, wow. I was just like, wow. Can you just like stop for a second and think about that? Yeah. Pretty absurd, right?
So,
but I mean, honestly, I'm still, it's kind of like, I've been sticking to what's been working for me. I'm not running any Nissas because, again, I don't run any mana accelerators and I have 24 lands.
Yeah.
So if you opt to go for Nissa, to be fair, I haven't tested it that much. Again, post board, you could also bring Nissa in. I think Hamilton Santos was the player who had the most successful Monogreen run in the past Red Bull. He lost in the top 8, so he nailed the top 8. That was pretty good. He lost to Javier Dominguez. I mean, the match looked very hopeless too. And again, he had Nissa there, but was unable to play it on curve. I mean, he got a little bit mana screwed, but still, it's kind of a tough challenge in general to play Nissa on curve off of 24 lands. Like, it's not very consistent, I
mean, you know, it's like I ended up running 25 lands in my Monogreen builds, and I still sometimes had trouble hitting my 4th land drop. So, I totally agree. That is just 5 mana spells in general, and you're not guaranteed to be able to play them in this deck.
Yeah, so my philosophy there is basically like, this is where I like Garruk, where it has kind of similar, you know, Vivian offensive potential with that plus, right? That's what I want to be doing. I want to trample up my Lovestruck, right, so that it doesn't get chumped by anything and just swing and hit hard and be fast and furious and all that. So my problem is with Nissa also is, again, like, Nissa requires the land count to increase, or like introduction of ramp creatures like Paradise Druid. Also, again, I saw a version with Llanowar Visionary. Now that's actually a good one. That's a good point, you know. But again, it's kind of like the same situation for me. Like for the Monogreen aggro deck, it's a kind of a tough challenge to increase your number of lands or play mana creatures. And then what happens if you don't draw your payoff spells? Again, you don't have the same potential as Growth Spiral as Uro. You're not getting draws, you're not digging, right? So it's like kind of, there's no way for me to accelerate Like I have to really like get lucky and pull it out. Pull one of the 2 copies probably, right? That's what you would run. Maybe you would run like 2, 3, probably 2 most likely. So you have to draw it, and then you have enough lands, and then you want to have a mana ramp too for that, right? Ideally. But there's no way for you proactively facilitate that process, right? Like you won't get a draw. Like, okay, Llanowar Visionary is probably then the closest thing you can get, because you get a ramp and you get a card draw. I think that actually makes most sense.
Yeah, it does. And I think the problem there is just that it's like, see, that really comes down to what's your deck trying to do, right? Mm-hmm. Because like, I don't think a Yorvo deck wants to run the Visionary.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? You're giving up your offensive potential. As soon as there's some kind of ramp, you're giving up your offense. So you better make sure that you hit that payoff.
Yes,
right. That's kind of the classic ramp. That I guess you could say the non-broken ramp. That's what the philosophy is, right? That's why it's like a classic fair ramp. You hit your lands, and you hit decent amount of your payoff spells to compensate for the loss of like that early game, right?
Yes.
So, and again, we go to the problem where Growth Spiral Uro ramp doesn't have that problem at all. They're going to be fine because they get in a draw. They're going to get to their payoff spells quicker, if anything, right? Or at the same pace.
Well, and here's the other thing is that their payoffs are like massive payoffs, you know? It's like they play a Krasis for X equals 6 or X equals 8, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a big payoff.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, it's like if the best thing that our deck can do is put down an Elder Gargaroth, it's like, okay, that card's good, right? But it's not an Ugin, it's not a Krasis, it's not, you know, it's not one of these cards that's just going to radically reshape the game.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's one of the tensions, and it's why I agree with you that it's like, you know, I've seen people running these lists where, they're trying to run the Goose or the Grazer or whatever to just kind of get out ahead of it. And I think it's misguided. You know, to be honest, if I were going to try to add a ramp element to my list, it would probably be Paradise Druid. Just because that thing can attack, you know?
Yeah, right.
And it's like it still pumps your Pelt Collector, you know? It's like if you put 2 counters on it with Nissa, it's a 4/3 hexproof. You know, it's like, it's okay. Yeah. It's not bad. It doesn't die to Bone Crusher before you got your value, you know?
I would agree with that too. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now I find that also, you know, problematic. Just the Ether Gust, you know, your payoff spell gets Ether Gusted.
Yeah.
It's the same reason that at some point I went back from Paradise Druid, because it's basically like a huge nightmare where, yes, you want to play a 4-drop on 3, but when you do, you eat a dispute, you eat a gust, and then it's kind of like, wow, what do? I might not even have enough lands in my hand, and do I actually top this payoff spell, or do I bottom it?
Yeah, that feels so
then
bad.
If I top it, my Paradise Druid is tapped now, it gets removed, and that's it, I lose the game, right?
Yeah.
That's just horrible. So that's kind of like, I decided to go with a pretty straightforward curve and not, you know, try to do this somewhere in between, right? Be kind of ramp or the thing kind of thing. So that's why that's basically my take, you know, on it. And I think it's still like fair to run maybe Nissa in the sideboard, but again, I don't want to hurt my Henge. I still get flooded off of Henge sometimes, even on 24 lands and stuff. So yeah, that's been my philosophy. So I run currently 2 extra Garrux versus control matchups.
Okay,
that's pretty much it. Yeah. I don't run Nissa, and I run 24 lands, and it's kind of like I know where I'm getting no matter what, and I don't need to worry about that. And that's pretty much my story. Yeah.
So you're staying focused on being an aggro deck, and you're staying focused on consistency.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm not trying to spike anything. And that's totally fair. I think if you want to keep up, that's what you have to do. But I don't think it's just consistent enough as the blue-green ramp.
Well, and I mean, you know, if you can smash face without having to reach for those 5-mana spells, then I mean, so much the better, right? It's like it's not like we're running out of things to do with our mana. So
yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Like most likely you're not. I mean, until it's like irrelevant anyway.
Exactly.
But the thing is, it's like it for me. It comes from these patterns that are probably, I mean, somewhere close to muscle memory already. It's like it's somehow it's sometimes still hard to do the math several turns ahead. Especially like, let's say they have Joel Rail and they run like a 4-mana Tef, and then you start thinking, right? You have this attack in front of you, and you start thinking, well, what's going to happen? Are they going to phase you out? Are they not going to phase you out? Are you attacking the Tef? Are you attacking them? How are they going to block? Are they going to block with this Panther here? Are they going to trade? Are they going to chump block? Are they going to double block? Are they not going to block at all? And it's like, wow, it becomes infinite. It becomes like virtually impossible, right, to do the math. But the thing about it is, like, also, I think like the patterns like have been working for me when it comes to this just building this offense. I mean, I get it that like Primal Might Nissa is cute, but it's just like I'm not a very big believer in the consistency of that. I don't know.
Yeah,
we see a lot of like pretty big successful players even these days, pro players running Monogreen, and obviously Primal Might is amazing, but I think that turn 5, I would rather just play Primal Might and end the game.
That's it
by itself. That could be very well enough. Just from my experience, I think it's fair as well.
It's like we don't need to like destroy the game, right? We just need to win the game.
Right. It's like
just get your opponent to 0. Don't get worried about trying to have some big fancy finish. Don't get worried about just like killing them twice over or whatever. It's like that's
right. Basically, that's a good point too, because I mean, you can only play one spell a turn, right? It's kind of like it's basically like if you're actually not casting out your hand. I think so. Again, like the way I'm building is basically like that's it. You're gonna play. You have to hit your 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's gonna be ultimately pretty much it. Now you just have to build it in the most efficient way, right? So this is where you don't want to overload on 4 drops. You don't want these like high payoff spells, like too many of them either.
Yeah, because you know what? Like, Pelt Collector is good enough, right? Barkhide Troll's good enough. Like,
that's already going to get you somewhere in a pretty solid fashion.
Yeah, like that's what the deck has proved, is that, you can just curve out and kill him. Like, that's one of the reasons this deck has been doing so well, is that it can do that, and it's pretty good at doing it.
It's designed to do that, right? It's like it's pretty much people like sometimes I notice somewhere in chats or whatever, oh, look at him, he's got a 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, he's just curving out. Oh, that's what you're read Frank Carston's articles. And you will understand that that's totally what you can do and what you should be doing as an aggro deck. That's pretty much it. And also you probably cannot expect to play consistently a 5-mana spell off of 24 lands, and then the discussion starts from there. Like, what are you trying to accomplish and things like that, right? So that's pretty much it. And it got me so far. I'm still a believer in that. Last run did not go like too well. I went 5-3. I played through all my rounds. I didn't need to drop, but I got good experience from that. Only like reinforced some of the points and some of the sideboarding plans. So I'm gonna try again, and should be solid as well, in my opinion. Like that's it. Like, also, I think you can't really push it anymore. Like, it's good that you have, of course, different options available, but honestly, there's not much you can really do. So you have to kind of, it's been said and done before on what the standard is right now, and honestly, like the chance, you still definitely have a chance, it will get you somewhere. Like, I'm trusting my judgment at this point, and Yeah.
Well, I mean, you have the results to back it up, so
Yeah.
So before we head out here, just a couple additional questions I wanted to ask you. What do you think about Mobilized District in the mana base?
Yeah, I guess it makes sense if you're not running... I mean, I kind of want to say that, right? Probably if you're not running Yorvo, you should be fine.
Yeah.
However, it's still kind of, I remember, of course, that Mobilized District won me quite a few games in the past. I've been running it even with 3 Yorvos, but it's probably, I decided to step away from that. The reason for that is, I guess if you're running Chamber Guardian and you're running like Lovestruck, you have no Yorvos, it should be fine. 1 copy, I would not go more than 1 for sure. But I find it, still sometimes a little sketchy. Like maybe if you have less copies of Trolls, maybe like 3 or something, you cut on the Trolls. Again, it's gonna be a time still where, you might want to play Heart's Desire Pelt.
Yes.
You might want to play Troll. You might want to activate your Ooze.
Yes, the Ooze, it comes up a lot.
Yeah, things like that. I probably would not do it. I think maybe it's not even that necessary. I would definitely not do it in my version. I have still 2 Yorvos, but yeah, honestly, like I remember from just my past experience. What if you want to play like double Primal Might, even things like that? Sometimes.
Yeah. I'm so with you.
Know.
I ran a version that was just running one of them, and I was like, the moment I hate this, it's out of the deck. It's like the moment I have to play off curve because of this card, it's out of the deck. And I just it happened a couple of times and I was done. I was like, whatever win rate equity I was getting out of having this as a potential finisher was not worth the win rate equity I was losing by not curving out, right?
Right. I think it's a very good point.
It's like, that's what my deck does. My deck wants to go turn 1 Pelt Collector, turn 2 Barkhide Troll, turn 3 Yorvo, turn 4 Vivian, right? And it's just like, and here's another thing, right? This is something that people don't think about. If your deck was 23 Forests, 1 Mobilized District, that would be one thing, right? But but you're also running Castle Garenbrig, so when you look at the opening hand, which is like...
That could be good. That could be really bad.
It's terrible.
That could go south.
Yeah, so that's the thing. It's like the castles complicate things as well. So overall, I don't know. I think people get greedy with the land. I would suggest not running it, to be honest. I really would.
Yeah, sometimes it's also like the activation cost gets a little tricky. 4 is a lot.
Yeah,
I mean, sure, you can reduce it off of like a Planeswalker or a Questing Beast, but other than that, like it's rough. Still can be some times where you have to even pass. You can't really even activate the land on demand. Also.
Yeah.
Sometimes, okay, I don't have enough mana. I don't have a 4, or I want to do something else with my mana, right? I want to play a ram through instant speed or whatever. And I think of course, something like a treetop village would be pretty nice. Despite
absolutely.
the fact that it's tapped.
Yeah.
That could be good. But probably. I mean, of course, I think definitely that if you are running one of those utility lands, District is the way to go. I would not try Bonder's Enclave or Current Bastion.
Yeah.
Again, because District is good. It adds to that number of attackers, or just finishing off of an empty board, finishing the game, right? But it's pretty tough. It's a tough one.
Yeah. I think I would be more likely to run the District in the 2 Nissa version of the deck. Both because paying for it is easier, and also because just the way you're constructing your deck to make that Nissa relevant is probably a little bit more friendly to the District. But
probably.
Yeah, but I think it's like, I think you nailed it perfectly. It's like you really have to look at the number of Barkhide Trolls and Yorvos and stuff like that you're playing in the deck, because those cards they just get so much worse off curve.
Yeah, double 1-drop, Ooze activation are big factors too now.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, now let's quickly touch on the removal spell suite, because I think a lot of people are wondering, right? So how are we coming down on Primal Might versus Ram Through? Like what? Like how do you decide your numbers of those?
Yeah, that's a big one, right? That's quite interesting. So currently, like for me, the biggest kind of argument, I don't know. I saw a lot of people just jump into 4 Primal Might's main like immediately.
Yeah.
But for me, like I'm not like that big of a fan of that. Again, like if you're looking at the number of cards you should be running, I probably don't want to see just in general, right, versus a random, like in a vacuum, right? I probably don't want to see 2 Primal Mights in the main. Like again, curve comes first. Like in my opinion, just your creature curve comes first, and that's why like I'm pretty happy with what like the configuration I've come up with. So I'm running 2 in the main, 2 in the side, right? Yeah, again, for that very same reason, Ram Through does not make it in the main deck. Primal Might more so, because again, worst case scenario, you just pump and attack, right? You can do it with any matchup. Ram Through already requires your opponent having creatures. What if they are not running any creatures at all? What do you do then, right? And basically, that's kind of like the biggest factor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, does the instant speed come up for you that often?
The instant speed again is a bit situational. It's more of a sideboarding tech for me. Ram Through. I do run 4 copies now, so the biggest thing is probably like Nightpack Ambusher, and things like in the mirror match. Right, in the mirror match, I also actually take out Primal Might because of the sorcery speed.
Yes,
like, I found it to not be that impactful, even when you play it. Right, to remove your Lovestruck Beast. Let's say they have to spend their entire turn doing that.
Yeah. And
also, like, even if they do, they most likely can't follow it up with an attack. Right?
Yeah, because the creature has damage on it.
Mm-hmm. Right. The creature has a lot of damage on it. Mm-hmm. And again, it gets punished by Ram Through itself, and you can't, let's say, fight Questing Beast. Not gonna matter, right? It's gonna be a 2-for-1. Not great. So basically, Ram Through is very good versus, things like Mayhem Devil and things like that, right? Where you don't have to fight, don't have to take damage. Honestly, like Primal Might also is great. It's kind of takes care of that problem as well, because you get that stat boost.
Right.
And sometimes situationally, like Primal Might is better. In a few instances, let's say Cavalier of Thorns, you can clear it out, right? Let's say Elder Gargaroth too. Like this is where it gets problematic with some of these like Temur Reclamation matchups right now, because like depending on the configuration they're running, like they tap out for let's say if they tap out for the Gargaroth, it's actually pretty good for you because you can safely just Primal Might their Gargaroth easily. And things like that.
You raise a good point that even though our creatures in the deck are quite big, it can be hard to get to a 6/6, right? So it can actually be difficult to have a 6/6 available if you want to ram through that Gargaroth. So that's when the Primal Might comes in handy, is that the size of your creature basically doesn't matter at that point.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Again, it kind of depends on like the number of attackers, right? It's pretty awkward. Like if they have something else on board, then you can't really attack because it's gonna trade.
So I'm really glad that you brought it up for the mirror match specifically, because one of the ways that I've had the most success in the mirror match is, double blocking is a huge part of the mirror. Because like the size of creatures matters, and the board typically gets clogged up, and Ram Through just destroys double blocks. It's so good in that situation.
Ram Through definitely takes priority there for me. The stalemate. Why the stalemate happens, right? Because you don't have good attacks, right?
Yeah,
they have good double blocks on you, or they just have like a big creature, and this is where like. Yeah, Primal Might just kind of fades, in my opinion.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and especially if if you bought out your Stone Coil Serpent, then that's just like because one of the ways that you can actually sometimes win in the mirror is like, let's say you have a big trample creature and you remove that biggest blocker, and then you just attack with like a massive trampler that you pumps with your Primal Might. Primal Might is definitely a good combo with trample, but again, it's like if you're taking out your big trample creatures, then it's less relevant there too. So yeah, well, that's okay. Now here's an interesting thing. I saw Li Shitian also was playing the latest Red Bull Russia event, and he was actually favoring Thrash Threat over either of these cards.
Okay, that's interesting.
And I didn't really understand why until I reread Thrash Threat, and I discovered that that can actually
hit Planeswalkers.
Planeswalkers, yeah. So he was valuing it in like probably for the Bant matchup specifically, or any of these Simic matchups, right? Running like the Teferis and maybe even Ugin, stuff like this. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's a very interesting point. The thing about it is, though, like, in my opinion, there's probably no fitting all the three cards, right, in decent numbers, like Primal Might, Ram Through, and Thresh. I mean, the thing about it is, I think, like, Primal Might is just more versatile overall. Like the most versatile, and despite sorcery speed, I think this would be my choice to clear Nissa, to be honest. I don't I mean, it's pretty good that you can do that, target Planeswalkers. Also, an interesting thing there is that you can't target your Stone Coil Serpent and hit something with that, because it has protection from
that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Awkward.
I'm not sure. I mean, it's definitely an interesting point. Coming from a player like that definitely deserves attention, no question about that.
Yeah.
But the thing is still, in my opinion, that, if Nissa untaps Brigging Pool or a Triome, I mean, you're kind of like, you're in trouble anyways, right?
That's true. Yeah.
And whether it's Thrash or Primal Might, I mean, in that sense, maybe it's actually like that sense, in that sense, right? Maybe this is where Thrash actually helps. Let's say you can still, like, you're playing still instant speed. You can actually clear Nissa and not lose the game by them gusting the Primal Might target. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like, the cards are very diverse.
Yeah.
I think I would rather like sacrifice Ram Through for Thrash. Honestly, this could be an interesting point. The thing about it is, like, Primal Might is extremely important against an early Priest of Forgotten Gods. I've said it like many times.
Yeah.
For people to pay attention to that, because sometimes if they go first, Ram Through or Thrash are not good enough, not fast enough. Actually, like, it got me thinking also when it comes to Ram Through now. It's like you probably don't get this trample direct damage off that often. I probably don't remember it happening too often, to be honest. Like, these days, somehow it became like less relevant. Maybe it's because like you're running less Gem Razors now, and that doesn't happen. Maybe it's an interesting point. If that was the case, I would definitely sacrifice some of the Ram Throughs for Thrash, because the effect is literally identical. It's actually something for me to think about.
Just consider it, because I was really into. I mean, I asked him about it on his stream, and that was his answer. Was just that dealing with the Planeswalkers was that important to him that he prioritized that over all of the other ones in his main deck. So
that's quite interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's very meta dependent, but it's just something to think about. It's another option. It's another reason you might just like. Maybe you cut a Primal Might and a Ram Through from your sideboard, and instead you just run 2 Thrash Threats in that position, and see how they feel.
I think so far I would probably maybe even consider cutting Ram Through altogether and playing 4 Thrash.
Yeah,
I think again this application of Primal Might that is very different from from those instant speed cards again, right? Just clearing that turn 2 priest, or you can hit Steamkin very early. You can hit Knight of the Ebon Legion or Joel Rail in the same fashion off of your 1-drop. So that's kind of it. Like, but honestly, if I think about it, so again, I'm not running any utility lands, so Thrash is going to be no problem to cast at any point. And yeah, it's indeed quite interesting. Probably this could be the way to go, because I honestly don't remember ram through direct damage, that remaining damage happening that often at all. It's like, right, like killing your opponent with like a big razor or something like this. Yeah, it's quite a good point, actually.
It's definitely an edge case, and in a lot of cases, maybe like a little win more. It's like it's not.
True.
Really...
Very true. You're already accomplishing a lot. By removing a relevant threat. That's pretty big. It means also, if you cast it, you have a good creature, you have a solid creature in play, at least one, and you're removing their target, so you should be doing pretty well in that spot, right?
Yeah, it's like, there are definitely some edge cases where like you're racing, and maybe especially in the sacrifice matchup, it's
probably.
Like you're doing something, but it is definitely a very edge case for sure. So, but yeah,
I need to remember when was the last time I actually hit like ram through for lethal. Like off the top of my head, I can't even think about the last time.
I've done it, but it was definitely in these configurations of like 4 Stone Coil, 4 Gem Razor, right? Those are really the situations,
right? Absolutely. Yeah. Now Gem Razor gets boarded out quite often, and you don't really have that,
Yeah. And again, it's like you could do it with Vivian, but again, it's kind of like if I have Vivian and a good target for Vivian,
you're already doing pretty well.
Do I really need anything else? So, you could get Magical Christmas Land with it, and like I have Questing Beast in play, and then I give it counters with Vivian, and then it's like whatever. But
right. Yeah, that's a lot of stars to align.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, my friend. Well, there's even more we could talk about, but I think that's a good place to wrap it up.
Yep, sounds good. Awesome.
So thanks so much for just joining me for another conversation, and hopefully after all of that, the listener will have some more tools in the belt when going to build this deck. And Rint, before we leave here, where can people find you online, and what's the best way to catch up with you and your work?
Of course. So guys, of course, check me out on Twitch TV/RintMS. So these are just my initials, right? RINTMS. And the same goes for Twitter as well. You can find me there. The same goes for YouTube. I've been again slacking on my YouTube channel, but I have some still good plans for that. So check that out if you're interested. A new video is coming soon. And guys, I'm playing some tournaments. I'm trying to stay somewhat competitive with this. Some interesting events to play. So looking good.
Excellent. All right. Well, go check out Rint. He's an excellent streamer. Always interacting with the chat. I learn things every time I watch you stream. So, and, you're really open to explaining and, considering ideas and stuff like that. So just great streamer to watch. Also, I know you've been playing some M21 Limited lately and doing quite well in that format as well. So,
I've been enjoying the draft. So definitely, I think, I think it's important sometimes to reset a little bit and play something different, something that not attached to a deck, and kind of learn some things in general, like do more math. Combat is pretty good. I think, in a core set like that, it's probably all about actually combat too, attacking and blocking and whatever. Pretty standard, right? So I pick up some things from that as well, like for myself personally. Just gets you in the habit of doing more math, and you get faced with some like unusual puzzles, right, in situations. It's pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, that's great. So there's more than just Monogreen to this man Maxim. So go check out his channel and watch him do what he does. All right, so that's going to wrap it up. You can find ArenaCraft at, on our website, arenacraftpodcast.com. We've been publishing to YouTube as well. So, if you don't want to listen on your podcatcher, you can find it on YouTube. There's also been some additional videos I've been putting out there lately. So if you want to check out more content. And I think that's going to cover it. Hope you guys have a good week, and we will catch you next time.